Welcome developers and AI enthusiasts. If you followed Google Next like I did, the word agent must be on top of your mind. There's a lot of buzz around agentic AI, ADK, MCP protocols, A2A protocols, etc. In this learning series, we are going to get our hands dirty with the agent development kit. If you're looking for a practical way to build, deploy, manage multi-agent systems, ADK offers a compelling set of tools and abstractions. By the end of this series, you will be well equipped with the capabilities of Google ADK. And you will be able to build and make your multi-agent app that you will be able to containerize and make it available on the internet by hosting it on the platform of your choice. So grab your editors and let's dive into the world of agents. My name is Jay Chenchlani and this is my channel Everything Cloud Platform. Here is what we are going to do in this series today. We'll get started with the Quickstart. Quickstart is available on the ADK website. It just lets you get familiar with the concept to start with. So we'll implement exactly what the Quickstart guide says, and that'll just get you rolling. We'll then enhance our code to build a chatbot, a standard ChatGPT-like prompt, if you will. That's the chatbot that we are going to build next. After that, we will enhance our multi-agent. We'll make the bot a real multi-agent by adding a few more agents. And these agents are going to be querying BigQuery datasets to answer the natural language questions. We'll use three datasets here: Chicago Crime dataset, GCP Release Notes dataset, and the Look eCommerce dataset. All of these are publicly available datasets in BigQuery. If you have a GCP account, you can go on to console and look for public datasets, and you will find these three. Chicago Crime and GCP Release Notes are single table datasets, whereas the Look eCommerce, it mimics a real life retail organization. It has like 7 tables in it. So we will be building our chatbots who will be answering questions based on data in these data sets. This is going to be an excellent learning journey as we go through building all of these agents. So welcome to the session again. Let's dive into it. These are the 5 references that you will need throughout this video. The first one is the Quickstart guide available on GitHub, and we'll go through this. The second is the ADK samples. You'll find a lot of examples, etc. that Google has made available on GitHub. We look at the Chicago Crime database because our agent is going to be querying these 3 databases that you see: the Chicago Crime, GCP Release Notes, and the Look eCommerce. These are available for public consumption on BigQuery. This is the Quickstart document that I talked about. We are going to be going through this to start with. This is the ADK samples GitHub repo that you will be able to use. There is a lot of good information in here. If you click on agents, there are sample agents that Google has made available to you, and you should be able to look at each one of these and build your own based on what you see here. There are 3 databases that I talked about. Chicago Crime, that's one database that has a lot of rows. Like if you see, there are like 8 million rows or so in this. So we'll be able to play with this data a lot. And this has a lot of good fields that we will be able to use as a sample for testing our multi-agent. So Crime is the first database we will use. The other public database data set that we are going to be using is the Google Cloud Release Notes. Now this has information with all the releases that Google has made so far over last few years and by product. So we'll be able to test our multi-agent with a lot of natural language questions based on Google releases, and the answers are going to be fetched from the data in this data set. Last but not the least is the Look Commerce ERD, the public data set that's available for consumption in BigQuery. Now, as you can see, there are like 7 different tables within this data set, and this mimics a fake e-commerce store, which has a lot of data across products, order items, orders, users, events, distribution centers, and inventory items tables. And this is what it looks like in BigQuery. So if you look at orders, a quick preview will tell you that there are like good 125k rows in there. And similarly, likewise, if you just browse through all the tables available in here, you will see substantial data, and we will be able to build a good chatbot that retrieves our answers from this data that you see here. Here is a sneak peek to what we will be building. Here's the finished product that you are going to be building with me today. At the start of the session, I talked about the Quickstart. That's where we'll get started with. So let's navigate to the Quickstart GitHub repo that is provided in the documentation. I'll just type it here, get to the Quickstart page. This is the Quickstart page that you see on the right, and we'll go through these series of steps. You just follow this documentation pretty easy, or follow along with me. This is the basic version of our agent space agent that we'll be building. All the advanced features that we saw in the sneak peek, we'll go forward with them as we get to the second step. But let's get started right here. Now, before even you start, make sure that you have the ADK installed. If you haven't followed these steps, just follow these two. I have the ADK already installed. Just see, it tells me it's already here, and if I just run the help command, it gives me the required output. So just validate that you have the ADK installed. These are the first two steps that I'm talking about here. Now let's go ahead and create our agent project. So let's see where we are. We will go ahead and create our project right here. So maybe I'll just follow exactly how this page is going through. So I'll just say agent space demo. All right. cd agent space demo. Now I'm in agent space demo. I do not have anything here. Now here I will create my multi tool agent folder, right? That's where majority all of our files are going to stay. So I will just get into multi-tool agent. Let's see, there's nothing in here. I'll just do a touch on these three files and we'll start populating these three files as the page documents here, right? So I'll do a touch of an init.py, a touch of agent.py, and we will have touch.env. Those are the three files that we need, and by this time you must have seen on the left hand side all these three files are showing up. And let's start adding some code in here. So in init.py we will need the from.import. So basically what the statement is saying, from the same location import agent, meaning import this. That's what it is saying. Just that is needed in init.py and you're done with that one. Now let's go to agent.py. We have already created this, and in the agent.py I'll just go ahead and copy paste the entire code that they have provided. We'll walk through the code here. So let me get this entire code here. So if you see, basically here there is one function called get weather, and if you read through this function, these are some instructions for what this function does. It retrieves the current weather report for a specified city that is passed as an argument to this function. And if you look at the Python code, it's nothing. It's pretty basic function that checks whether the city is New York. If it is, then returns success with a hard-coded response. If not, it returns error. So net this function returns the weather only for one city, New York. That's what we are configuring our agent to do. And this one is returning current time for New York. For any other city, it'll just throw an error, right? That's our agent. And this is how an agent is defined. This is how the agent definition. We are naming the agent as weather time agent. The model is important. We are using the model called Gemini 2.0 Flash. This is the description of the agent, and this is an instruction. Read through this because this is important. This is the instruction based on which our agent is going to be giving the answers using this model and the tools that we have provided. Tools are basically these functions, this additional customized piece of capability that we have configured for this agent. For this particular agent, weather time agent, basically we have enabled this agent to provide the weather report for New York. We have enabled the agent to provide the current time for New York. That's how you're reading this code. So I'll save that at this point and we'll move forward with the next step. Set up the environment file now. The environment file is going to take two values in here. A, for this value, Google Gen AI use Vertex AI, we are saying false because we are going to be using the Google API key. The other way is to provide your project information, and in that case you would say Vertex AI to true. For now we'll be using our API key. Now for API key, you will need to get to AI Studio and you will need to generate your key. Like I have generated my key already, and that's what I'll be using in here. So what I'll do is I'll copy this code. I'll have this available here and I'll soon replace with my actual key here. Now we are ready to run our agent. Please note that you will need to be in your parent folder right at this level to really run your agent. And the command to run is ADK web, and that really kicks off this agent. So once you run this is telling you that this is running on port 8000. Now at this point I'll navigate to my browser window. I'll hit port 8000. From here, I'll select the multi-tool agent, and now you're seeing the agent has come up. This is the window, and on the left hand side you will see the server logs. Basically, if you are running this application in Cloud Run, all of these logs will show up in Cloud Logging as well. So now let's start interacting with our agent here. Hi. And you see a brief response coming up, and you'll see all of these these logs getting pasted and worked out here. So let's start having fun with our agent now. What can you do for me? All right, let's see. So it says I can get the current weather or time for a city. What would you like me to do now? All right, get me weather for Minneapolis. That's where I am right now. Let's see. All right, it says there is no weather information available for Minneapolis. Can you guess why? Yes, we know why, because we have configured our agent only to provide the data for New York, not for Minneapolis, not for any other city. And that's why what you get is weather information for Minneapolis is not available. This is what we said the agent should return with, and that's the output you are seeing here. All right, so let's do this then. All right, get me the weather information for New York, please. All right, let's see. Now it knows this is configured, and it's providing me the response that we have configured in our tool. This is, if you look at the agent definition again, here now it's time that we should just look at this further. This description and instruction are telling the agent what the agent is configured for, what they can or can't do. And these are the tools that the agent has available in their arsenal to really, use these tools and get the answers for the user. All right. So we have tested weather. Let's quickly work with the time as well. What is the current time in Orlando? Well, I'm sure we are not going to get the answer because the agent does not know. The current time tool is also configured only to work for New York. All right, so let's ask give me the time in New York. All right, that's our answer, and it happily provides at this point the time in New York. All right, so that's how our simplistic Quickstart agent is working. But there is a lot more that is required to be done on here, because what we configured so far is really not of much of help. This was just to for you to see how the agents and get familiar with the agents concept. Now what we are going to do is we are going to be going deeper, or we are going to be restructuring our entire code, and we'll have a truly multi-agent system is what we are going to build next. At the start of the video, I mentioned some references. One of the references I mentioned was this ADK samples. Now keep this GitHub repo very handy. Maybe clone it in your local as well, because you'll need to keep referring to this. If you navigate to ADK samples, you will see a lot of sample agents in here, and I would love to show you the way they have structured any multi-agent application. So look at this brand search optimization, for example. If you look at this, let me get into the brand search optimization agent. Now this is that multi-agent folder in here. If you notice, you see the init.py here, the agent.py, and there's a new file, that prompt.py, that you are seeing. So we'll configure that too. The tools that we saw here in our agent, we configured these tools like get weather, get current time. Those will get into this tools folder. Any shared libraries like constants, for example, that are going to be used across the agents, they are going to be sitting in the shared libraries. And if now, since we are going to be building a multi-agent, of course, there are going to be sub-agents that we will be doing. Like in this particular example, these three: comparison, keyword finding, and search results are the sub-agents. So for our first version, we'll just restructure the code. We will not have the sub-agents folder, but we'll have a tools folder, we'll have a shared libraries folders, and we'll have these three. And this is how we are going to be restructuring our code. First, I'll just create the three folders that we need, right? Keep in mind that you must be in this multi-tool agent folder where you have your agent init.py and .env. That's where we are going to be. So I'll do an mkdir shared libraries and sub agents and tools. Now, if you see, you have these three folders that we just created. Now in sub agents, so let's do, say, the shared libraries first. So let me get into or what I'll do is touch shared libraries, say constants.py. Let me do a constants file, and in this constants.py, what we are going to have are a few things. So let me open the constants.py. That's what is going to sit in here. Let me do an agent.py. So let me get some configuration going in here. We just replaced these values with the values that we just built in our constants. And if you noticed, we imported these constants from the shared libraries right in our agent. We also added one statement here to import the prompt, but we haven't configured the prompt yet. What we are going to do is we'll move the prompts for that this agent is going to use in the prompt.py. We just built our prompt. We declared a variable called root prompt, and that has this root prompt. And what we'll now do is we'll replace our instruction with this. So instruction is now picking the prompt.root prompt, and we can safely now delete this. Now what we'll do is in shared libraries, like we said, we should be having our tools in the shared library. We just move the get weather and get timestamp in the my tools, like you saw here, and we imported basically my tools right in here in agent.py. And now we'll need to refer to this like this, right? So because these tools are sitting in that file. Our restructuring is pretty much done. Just to summarize, there is nothing as sub-agents because we do not have multi-agents yet. In shared libraries, we have our constants. In tools, we have our get weather and get current time. And in agent.py, we have replaced all of these values with the values coming from the constants and the prompt. In the prompt, we have configured our root prompt. So that's the restructuring that we just did. And just let's just go ahead and test our application now. Let me run this from the terminal. Now, if I run it here, it shows me that the application is running. If I just refresh, yeah, it's running. Let me just select an agent. Okay, all right. So one thing to note here is you should always run this from outside from the parent, where your parent folder is. And that's why you were seeing like these three, but those are not our agents. So let me just go back one library, go up one level, and see now I am in the right place. Let me just do an ADK web from here, and let me just refresh my screen right here. Now I just see multi-tool agent, and that's the right place. And now let me make this window bigger, and let me just resize some of this here so you're able to see it better. All right. This window, we'll talk about what the information that you see here. That's good information that is available to you, but we'll look at that later. For now, let's see the demo of whether our application is working fine, and we'll fix any issues that we might run into along the way. So let me just say hi and see our agent is working. Yeah, it works fine. It gave me a good response. I'll ask, what is your name? What can you do for me? All right, give me the weather in Minneapolis. All right, and it gives me fine. Yeah, it's not available. Let me also, all right, so give me weather in New York. I think this will work. So this should give us the right answer. Now let me ask the give me time, the current time in New York. All right. Okay, we are getting an error here, and the error might be maybe we did not shift, transfer everything that we needed to. Look at the my tools. Yeah, in my tools, if you notice the current time, that's using this zone info, and for zone info, there is this import that was sitting in agent, which is not needed in agent now, but it's needed in my tools because this is where we are using that particular library. So let me get that done, and let me do a restart of my server. And once the server is restarted, now I think I'll just need to, let me just see if I'm able to run without even a server refresh. I think it should be fine to work here. Okay, it says not found. Let me just, yeah, that session is not found. That's what it is complaining about. Let me just do a new session and start this. Give me the current time in New York. All right, date time is not defined. Okay, so we have one more issue here. Even this is used in there, so let me get this as well there. I think we should be good now. Let me rerun the server. Let me start a new session. Let me say hi, give me the current time in New York. Now this should work. Yeah, it just gave me. So I think our restructuring is done. All the functionality is working as we designed. Now it's time to really get to making this multi-agent. That's what we are going to do next. Let's now build our first sub agent, and we'll call this sub agent as our chat root agent. So some groundwork that we will need to do before we get started. So let's get into our multi-tool agent, our repo. Basically, we are going to go and build our sub agent in this sub agent folder, and we'll follow exactly how the ADK samples is suggesting how we should go about it, right? So let me go ahead and build our first sub agent right here. So let me see. In our sub agents, so let me get to sub agents. There is nothing in here, so we'll make a directory called chat. We'll touch two files in chat. One is our agent.py. Typically you will see agent.py and prompt.py as the two Python files in every sub agent. That's how we are going to be working through this. So in agent or .py for chat, what we are going to do is we'll import the required libraries. We'll import the constants, the prompt, all the necessary libraries that the agent is going to use. That's going to need the agent because we are going to be defining the agent here. And from the shared libraries, now notice that this has like these three dots because you'll need to basically it says you're going up 3 levels to really look at shared libraries, and you're importing the constants from there. And from the same location you are importing the prompt, and we haven't configured anything in the prompt yet, but we will soon. So say for example, this is our prompt and we will put this in our prompt here. So that's our prompt. It says you are an agent to answer generic questions about anything. You can answer generic questions about pretty much everything. That's our prompt that'll go along with this agent. Now we have we'll come back to agent, and in this agent now the configuration is we need maybe one more file that we will need to pull in from here. So let me get that one. In this is my chat root agent. Now chat root agent model is constants.model, name is chatroom agent, description is agent to answer generic questions about anything, and then your this was your description. Instruction is coming from the prompt file. Remember, from this prompt that we imported right from the same folder, from prompt.chatroom agent, and that will point to this. Basically this is what we provided as instructions. So at this point this is completed. Now what is not done is, in our agent we haven't linked our root agent to this sub agent yet, and that's what we are going to do next. We are going to be linking that sub agent to in our root agent file. And the way we do that is we will need to import that chat agent in our root. So in our root we will need this import. So basically it navigates to the subagents.chat.agent. Basically it's going to this, and it's this file, and it's importing the chat room agent from there, right? This is what we are importing. And once you have that, now that needs to be linked to this root agent. And the way you link that is you basically configure sub agents, and the syntax is basically just have your sub agent like a list in here. And now at this point we do not need these two tools in here. Basically our agent is now configured to just use one sub agent. It's still not technically multi-agent because it's just working with one agent, but we'll get there. This finishes our configuration, and we'll now test and see whether the application is working. Let me run ADK web. We'll start the application, refresh my window. The agent is running. Let me just say hi, and let's see what it provides. Well, it's still asking me whether I want to know the time or weather in a specific city, and that's because we did not quite change the prompt for the root agent. It still says that I can give you the weather and time in a specific city. And now to get that to what we want, now let's go ahead and change this prompt. We are saying you are a smart, always on personal assistant built using Google Agent Space. You can assist with tasks, queries, and conversations in a natural, intuitive way. All right, so we provide that kind of prompt here. I'll restart my server. I'll just refresh my screen here. All right, there you go. The screen is refreshed. Now let me say hi and see what it gives me. All right, it's asking me how it can help. All right, so let me ask this. What is your name? All right, name is multi-tool agent. I don't really like that name, and we'll do something about this as we go forward, but that's its name. And now I'll ask what can you do for me. Now it should give us something. Well, it still says time and weather in a city, and let's figure out why. The reason it's still giving us the old prompt is because we haven't changed the description. We are still referring to the description from our constants.py. That's still talking about the same old prompt. So at this point we'll go ahead and change that prompt to say something nicer that matches with what the chat agent is configured for. Say something like, I'm a multi agent, or I'm a smart multi-agent tool, and something to that effect. Now the description is changed, and we'll go ahead and restart our server and retest it, and let's see if we are able to get to the new description that we wanted. We said hi, and now we'll go ahead and ask for what we need. Let's go ahead and say hi. It responds with how can I help you. Let's see whether we still see the old prompt. So let's check the name first, and now let's ask what they can do for us. Now at this point we get the right response as we expect based on the new description that we just set up in our constants .py. Now let's go ahead and play with this a little bit more to really see what else can it provide. Now notice that we have configured our agent to really tell us a lot of generic information. Now this is like working like ChatGPT, or like it's working with generic natural language prompts really. So tell me something about Vegas just brings in a lot of good information about Vegas from the model we have configured, and the model that we are using is the Gemini Flash 2.0, right? That's the model we are using. All right, we'll try at this point a couple of more questions as we go through this. What is the capital of, say, Belgium? Let's see whether it brings up the correct answer. Fair. It just gets the answer from the LLM from the model we are using. We'll try a couple of more questions around here to see really how our agent is behaving. It's now time to move and configure an additional agent, which is the DB agent. Now, as we said originally when we started with, we are going to be configuring like 3 BigQuery dataset based agent. One based on crimes, Chicago crime data, the other one on GCP release nodes, and the third one on the look eCommerce fake eCommerce company. Let's look at what the crime database looks like. This is the crime database. Now there are a lot of rows like we saw to start with, and it has all of these fields: a unique key, a case number, the date when the crime was occurred, the block, the primary type. We'll be testing a lot of queries based on this primary type. So just take a quick good note of the different types that you see, the location, whether there is an arrest, whether this was domestic, non-domestic, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of good data that we'll be able to get our agent to fetch from this table. So that's the crime data set. Now, to configure our agent to work with this data set, we'll need to do a few things. We'll need to declare a few additional constants because we'll need to point to the BigQuery project, and this is the data set, that's the table name. So we'll need to, the agent will need to have this information available. So we'll configure some of this in our constants. Then we will build a tool, because now the agent will need to perform the BQ operations, right? It will need to generate the SQL that is needed to pull. So based on the natural language, the agent will parse the natural language question and will then get the SQL that is needed to really pull the information or the data from the crime database. And then we will need another tool or function that really executes that query and gets the response. Right. So we'll do all of that. And also when the third step is we will need to build the DB sub agent that really uses all of this information to perform the operations needed. And lastly, we will need to have the root agent configuration changed to add this additional sub agent as a sub agent in that in that root agent definition. Those are the 3 constants that we are going to be needing, right? That points to the BigQuery public data set project, which is called BigQuery public data, the Chicago crime data set, and that is Chicago crime, and the table ID is crime, like you see here, the Chicago crime, and all of this is in BigQuery public data project. So those are our additional constants that we will need. Now let's look at what else we had. We need to have the tools to perform the BQ operations, and at this point the tool that we are going to be using is, we are going to be calling this BQ connector .py in tools. So in tools, I'll go ahead and create one file and we'll call this BQ connector.py, and in this file let's include some information that we are going to be needing here. So let me just add some of this information, and this time we'll include some logging and logging information as well, which is going to be some of the best practices to be included, because eventually we are going to be running our tool, our agent in Cloud Run, right? So we'll need to have the cloud logging, our tool log all the information, because the SQL that it generates will need to log that for future troubleshooting, right? If the agent is resulting with some incorrect or inaccurate information, you should be able to go back, look at the logs and do your troubleshooting to determine whether the agent really, got the right answer that you were looking for. Now these are some functions that I'll write. This is my execute query. Just included some modularity in the code, which will just make it easier to read. And I'll walk you through what we are doing in this code, why each of these functions really is needed. But this is our connector. This is the tool that the agent is going to use to generate the SQL and execute the SQL. So let's see what this is doing. So this generate SQL takes the user question, and this is just for some logging. It's using the model that we declared in constants.model. It gets the response based on this user question. It basically generates the SQL in the first step from the model, and we just perform some cleanup on the SQL, because the SQL, the response that comes back from the model has some of this text that we want to get rid of, so that we can get the clean SQL. Once we have the clean SQL, this is another second iteration of making the SQL further cleaned up, because by default when the SQL comes back, it is broken up apart in different lines, like the select is in the first line and then from table name is in the second line. That is a good practice as well, but the reason I chose to remove the new line characters and replace them with our spaces is because when we print the SQL in the logs, it will unnecessarily show up in different lines. I just wanted to have the entire SQL show up on one log entry, and that's the reason for making this this cleanup. And then we return this clean SQL from this function. And the second would be to execute the SQL. Basically, it just takes this clean SQL, it calls this execute query, which really is having the BQ client, the BigQuery client. It's using the SDK for BigQuery for Python to get the results in a pandas data frame, and then it's converting that into a JSON string and returning back to the cloud. So that's our connector, that's our tool. That completes your number 2. And now we'll need to do our DB sub agent configuration. So currently, if you notice, we just have the chat sub agent. So let me get here. If I clear this up, let's create our files and then we'll start putting in code in there. We have our structure created. We just created a DB in folder in the subagents. We created an agent.py. We created prompt.py. And let's start adding the code in here. The first thing is, let me get the prompt done. So the prompt is, let me get here. We just need the constants. Remember, we just created our constants that are holding the BigQuery project, data set, and the table name. So we will need that information in our prompts for the data. Then I'll create a prompt called generate SQL agent prompt, and this prompt basically says you are think about it. If you are asking a Gen AI model, be it ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever you might be using, prompt engineering is a thing, right? Your prompt really gets the needed answer. So we are making sure that our agent is asking the right prompt that gives the needed SQL that we will be able to run to get the answer, get the data we are looking for. So the way this prompt is configured is you are an expert in SQL. Based on the following table schema, write a SQL query for the question. Now, that's an important point. The table schema will need to be in here in the SQL prompt. That's how the agent is going to be able to form the SQL. So let's see what we do next. So that's our prompt. Notice that we have left this empty curly braces because that's what we are going to now populate. So our Chicago crime database, let me get this in here. So see this, if I copy paste this additional detail in here. So look at this. Now, if you read this, that's your table schema. It has all these columns: unique key, arrest, beat, community, district, domestic, everything that you see in here, these columns. So that schema, basically this entire schema is here, and the schema, and now I'm going to build the table reference, and table reference in BigQuery works like project.datasetid.table ID, and that's what we are doing here. See this constants.BigQuery public data project, constants.datasetid, constants.table ID. So those three values concatenated with a dot in between becomes the table reference that is going to be needed for the SQL. And this is our table schema Chicago crime. Now what we are adding is, basically I'm adding one more statement that says table colon this table ref, and we are appending this information that will build our Chicago crime agent prompt. That's going to become the prompt for the crime agent here, because now we are adding, if you notice line number 34, line number 34 is really appending or it's really modifying this and populating the entire table schema information in this position, right? In this place. That's what it is doing. That will make our Chicago crime agent prompt complete, right? There is one more information that we need in this prompt, and this is going to be our DB root agent prompt. Remember, in our design, we are going to be having like 3 different DB sub-agents. So within the DB root agent, we are going to be having 3 sub-agents. 1, Chicago crime, B, GCP release notes, and C, the look eCommerce. This completes our prompt.py. If I just go back to our steps that we were originally we went through, we have completed up till 3A. Now let's go about doing our 3B. Basically 3B is this agent. We haven't done anything here, and that's what we are going to do next. So in 3B, what we need is, of course, we will need to import everything that we need to import. So let me get all of our prerequisite agents, etc. All the libraries that we need. And notice that we are including our BQ connector, the prompt. Not this yet. We will get to that later. This is our logging and inspect. All right. So we have this. Now I'll go ahead and configure my DB root agent, and this DB root agent looks something like this. That's our same model. Name is DB root agent, and the description is agent to query DB and answer questions. Now keep in mind, this is DB root agent, not one of those 3 yet. And the sub agents are going to be just Chicago crime agent. We do not have the other two agents configured yet. So we'll use the Chicago crime agent for now. So that now this sub agent will need to be defined as well. And let's define that sub agent right here. So outside of that root agent, let me define my Chicago crime agent as well using the same model. That's the name, that's the description, which is specific to Chicago crime database. Instruction prompt. Now look at this prompt.chicago crime agent. That's what we just configured. If I just copy this and if I search this in here, you will see that this is the prompt that our Chicago crime agent is going to use, right? That's very important because based on this, it is going to get the correct SQL that it needs to execute, right? And now it will need a tool as well. Remember all the connectors in all the code that we put in our BQ connector, they'll need to get executed as well. Now, how will that get executed? Because the Chicago crime agent will need to have a tool configured. A tool is really this helper function that we are going to configure. And let me get that configuration now. Basically, that is a function and that looks something like this. All right, let me get this function and we'll put this function right here. So this function, now look at this, get data from Chicago crime. That is the function that gets called user question. Now notice this, that this is a Python function that takes a user, takes one argument. But notice that in this tool configuration, we really did not provide anything in here. And that's a core agent space functionality, if you will. Agent space determines with the ADK, basically that determines which function needs to be called, based on this, but what all parameters need to be passed to that particular argument, that is determined by the agent, right? The way get data from Chicago crime tool is working, see, it's taking the user question as an argument, and inside the code, if you see, the entire query prompt is being built by concatenating two things: this, then followed by a question, and then another variable. So if you think about it, this query prompt basically is everything that you have configured in Chicago crime agent prompt, which has the table schema, which says you are a SQL expert and you will need to write a query based on this table schema, and this question, which is the natural language question in the variable called user question, right? So basically my entire query prompt that is actually going to the generate SQL is everything that we said in here, which has the table schema, which has this you are an expert in SQL, the table ref. So all of this information plus the question, the natural language question, all of that put together will enable this generate SQL to really generate the right SQL, because it's also calling the model. If I now go back to show you the BQ connector, if you look at this code right here, it's basically again using the same model to get the SQL and execute the SQL and get the result back in here. This returns the information back to the agent, and agent then displays the information that is retrieved back to the user. Last but not the least, we'll now need to modify the root agent to add this new DB agent that we just configured as a sub agent, because without that it's not going to work. Currently our root agent just knows chat root agent as the only available agent, but we'll need to modify that to configure the other agent as well. And the name of that agent is DB root agent. So we'll need to have that here as well as here. And in here, I think we will need to modify this to point to the right folder. So now that completes our configuration. I'll just go ahead and start testing in here. So let's do an ADK web. Let's see if our if everything, if we have taken care of everything, this will just work. Otherwise, we'll run into issues, and we'll determine what needs to be fixed. All right, now I'm ready to test this. Let's just say hi. The reason for this issue is in our code we have been using logging level constant, but we haven't really declared this. So we just declared that that logging level constant here, and now this should just work. So let me just restart the server and run it again. Let me refresh my page here, and let's say hi. All right, what can you do for me? All right, let's see what it can do. All right, now it is saying I can answer general questions on a variety of topics, or I can query specific BigQuery datasets if you have questions about them. Right now it knows that there is a BigQuery dataset as well configured, and our prompt is really making the agent give that answer that it can really do that. So let me let's take a few examples and see how our agent really responds to that. So the first question that I'll ask is, say something like this: will you be able to answer questions about crime numbers in Chicago? Let's see what it says. All right, yes, I can answer about crime numbers in Chicago. What would you like to know? So let's say I'm saying give me the top 5 primary crime types in Chicago. At this point, it does not really know whether I'm asking for data or I'm just looking for SQL. So it just provided me SQL by default. So well, you can just correct the behavior by saying, actually, I am looking for the data, not just the SQL. All right. So let's see. Now at this point, okay. Looks like we have a couple of more issues in the code that we will need to address. So let's address this too. It's complaining about another missing constant, because now BigQuery is going against the project configuration, right? So there is an information that this is using. So that's my project where this API and Gemini model, etc., is being used. So let me just do that. Hopefully this time we are fine. Let me just run this again. Let me just refresh this, get rid of this. Let me get the queries back. We have gotten back to where we were. I'm just issuing the same prompt. I'm looking for data, not just the SQL. If we have taken care of everything, this should just run and provide us the information we are looking for. Let me close this. Let me hide this. Yep. Okay, there you go. So we have the information. The top 5 primary crime types in Chicago are theft, battery, criminal damage. And if you see in the logs, we have printed the SQL in the log, so you'll be able to see the SQL as well somewhere in the logs right there. So see this, select primary type. Yep, and this is limit 5. That's the query that is giving us the result that we need. Now let's try a few more prompts here and watch the information right here, because all of this is going to get printed in cloud logging and will come handy in case of issues. So let's write a issue a few more commands, and let's see whether our agent is really doing what it is supposed to do. So what we asked was, can you break these numbers by domestic or non-domestic? And this is the information that it gave you. So assault has these many domestic and these many this is non-domestic, this is domestic. And if you go back to the data, just cross check. If I do this, basically it's going after the fields that you see here. Primary type is this, domestic versus non-domestic is this, false and true. And you should be able to really just use this SQL and group by that entire SQL. You should be able to just run this SQL like this, and you will probably just need to make a few corrections here, like BigQuery expects the data in that particular format. Let me change that, and this should just work the way it is. Yeah, that's the data that you are seeing. It's just showing you the data in this format. Like assault has 390375. Assault, yeah, there is the number. So that's the data that you're seeing. Now let's test a few more queries, and if I run this, I just have some sample questions here that we are running. All right, there you go. That's the table. Now let's configure the second database agent, and that second agent is going to work on the GCP release notes, right? That table. So the name of the table or dataset is Google Cloud Release Notes. The name of the table is Release Notes. We'll need to configure, and basically we'll do all of these steps for this new agent as well. I'll do that in a fast forward mode, because all of this we just went through with the Chicago crime database. Let's do some testing here on with the latest changes that we did for our new GCP release notes agent as well. So let me start the server, and let's refresh our window, and let's start executing the commands against this new agent. So let's start with testing the agent here with some questions. All right, it responds fine to my hi. Let's see what it says for what all can it do. Now it's saying query databases. Originally, I think it was just saying one BigQuery dataset. Now it has like a couple to go against, and it's appropriately answering the question for us. Let's see, we'll have some test queries against the GCP release notes, and let's see the kind of responses that it comes back with. So let's see. Yep, it answers fine for this question. Yes, I'm able to answer questions about GCP release notes. What would you like to know? So let's ask our first question, which will be around, say, give me the first and last or even before we do that, let's test this out, whether it's able to run or answer this question about the look eCommerce database. Remember that we haven't configured this yet, so agent does not know about it, and we are getting the right answer. Let's get back to answering, asking a couple of questions around GCP release notes, which will tell us whether the agent is really working fine or not. So pay attention to the left hand side. This is where you see the logs, which is important from production standpoint. This comes very handy when there are issues, when there are questions around accuracy of the data. You will need to refer the logs. The first question we asked was, give me the first and last GCP release, and it comes back very accurately with the dates from the database. Let's try a couple of more queries that will really make us comfortable on whether our agent is really understanding everything or not. On the left hand side, you are seeing the query that it ran to really get the data that you are seeing in the result. Now let's ask one more question right here. And this question would be around, say, how many releases were there in 2024. It comes back nicely with the answer. Let's try a couple more here that will make us confident that yes, our agent is accurately understanding the questions, generating the right SQL, and really getting the responses that we need. Now we are trying to extract a table with the number of releases by year, and that's what you see here in the data neatly put in a table. Now, how many distinct GCP products? It comes back with 304. So all just seem to be working fine. Let's see, maybe try one or two more here and see if we are able to get this. Okay, give me the top 5 GCP products with most releases. Sorted by descending order. Yeah, that gives me the correct and accurate number and results as well. You can absolutely go ahead and cross-check by running the SQL that is printed in the logs to really cross-check whether the data coming back is nice or not. Now, this table. Now, on the left-hand side, just see we have run into an error here. You've asked to give me a the top 3 products with most releases by year for last 3 years. Now this resulted in an error, and it's interesting to see why we ran into an error. The reason we ran into an error with that one was, look at the SQL. The SQL is a complicated SQL with a with clause, and there are commented lines in the code. And notice in our BQ connector, when we went through the code, I mentioned that when I did this line 32 basically to clean up the SQL and remove the new line characters and replace them with spaces, so that the SQL nicely gets printed in the logs in one log entry only, not through multiple log entry items, just for readability. But then in production, I will not need to, I would not suggest we do this. Let the SQL get printed however it is printing, because there might be cases when our agent is coming back with a complex query like this one, which has some commented lines. And if we do line number 32, that'll make the query fail. So that's just something to keep in mind. These are scenarios that can happen. I think at this point we are good with our second sub agent as well. Now we'll go about configuring the eCommerce ERD that has multiple tables in it. We are now ready to do the look eCommerce data. Now notice that this has additional complexity. Now our agent will need to understand this entire landscape. In the first 2 cases, in Chicago Crime and the GCP release notes, it was only one table in each one of those. So when we built the prompt for those 2, that just had one table schema. Now in this case, when we build the agent for this one, the prompt is going to be much more complicated than what we saw for the first one. That's the only difference here, because now the agent will need to know the schema for all the 7 tables that are in the ERD. That's important. That's very, and that's how that'll give you an idea that no matter what you are trying to pull, as long as the prompt includes all the information that agent will need to build your query, you should be able to get there. All right, so let me show you this. Yeah, this is the eCommerce database that we are talking about, right? Now we'll go about making the same kind of changes. The changes are going to be exactly the same as we did for the others. The only difference will be now the prompt is going to be different. Like for Google Cloud release notes, the prompt was just this, but for the eCommerce, we'll do the prompt differently, and I'll talk about it. But for now, I'm going ahead in a fast forward mode with adding all the code that we need to make this work. And all the code, basically, if you look at this, yes, you need your additional constants, and there will be a lot more constants now. This is not needed, like we already have this. Prompt, we'll need to get a lot of additional information, and then the DB root change that we'll need. All right, so watch the screen in a fast forward mode, and I'll talk to you when as we complete the change. So for prompt, we'll just create a new prompt file altogether. Let's walk through this. So this is the table schema We are importing the constants because we'll need all the constant values. Now see this. This is the table schema for products. So just look at it. ID, cost, category, name. If you look at the products table and look at the schema, ID, cost, category, name, all of these, this is showing up. And this is the table ref. This is the table schema TL. So that completes the information for that particular product. This is your next table schema. This is the next. This is the next. So all of these are concatenated here. Now look at this. So after we did all the table schemas, now we are going to be joining all of these table schemas into one big gigantic prompt, the TLE SQL agent prompt. Now this is saying you are an expert in SQL. You'll be able to build complex SQL queries with inner and outer joins across multiple tables, right? The Look eCommerce ERD has multiple tables in it, and every table has a primary foreign key relationship. Based on the following table schemas, and we are appending all of these schemas in the next statement here. See, all of these are getting joined to prep this the Look eCommerce agent prompt. That's the prompt that once gets built is going to be used in the agent. If you look for that, yeah, that's the prompt we are using. But before that, we will need to do one more statement because it's a new file, that prompt TLE, that needs to be imported as well. Now this completes all the change. We'll go about doing a quick testing and validate that our changes are working fine. Let's start testing our agent for whether it can really bring all the information from the Look eCommerce. Notice the number of tables, 7 tables: products, order items, orders, users, events, distribution centers, and inventory items. And we are going to be asking questions that the agent will need to look at each one of these tables, do the joins, and give us the answers we are looking for. Let me just run our server again, and we will just make some room so that we can look at the logs right here. Okay, all right, this is running. I'll make sure that I create a new session. Let's say hi. All right, and all right, let's see. Let me ask some questions. Will you be able to run queries against the Look eCommerce database? All right, now it knows, right? We asked this question previously when we did not configure this. It said no. Let me get the total number of orders from the table. All right, let me get the right prompt. That's my prompt. Okay, it gives me SQL. It just needs to know that no, I am looking for data, not just the SQL. All right, it then resets and it understands that yeah, I'll need to produce the data for the questions the user is asking. Let me ask some of this. All right, get the total number of ordered items, right? That's what it is. It's giving me. So simple queries. Now let's make the queries a little bit more complicated. Generate a table for orders by status. Sort the results in ascending order. Here is our table. So canceled, complete, processed, processing, returned, and shipped. All right. And now I'm looking for, say, give me the distinct brands the Look eCommerce carries. Let's see if it's able to get the data. Once that comes back, all right, I think we have another error. Okay, that error basically is I exceeded my quota. So we'll just wait for a couple of minutes and then we'll get back here. Well, that's an interesting thing as well, because there are quotas associated. I'm using a free tier, and free tier, the model that I'm using, every model has set per minute and per day quota. So I just hit the per minute quota, and we'll wait for a couple of minutes, and then get back, and we'll get the quota refreshed for the minute. Running the command again after waiting for a minute or two, and I'm now able to run this this command, and that gave me the answer that I'm looking for. Right now, let's run a few more prompts. So let me see this one. Give me the top 5 selling brands. That gives me a very good and neat answer with all the 5 brands. Let's ask a few more questions. Now, give me the top brands with more than 1,000 products sold. Let's see whether it's able to get the data that we want. Yeah, there you go. So more than 1,000 products. These are all the brands that have really sold more than 1,000 products. Now, a question from the users. Give me the number of users by country sorted in descending order. Let's see if it's able to get the answer that we need. All right, that's the users. My next question is, what are the top 5 brands amongst the users in China? So these 34,000 users, what are they using? Now, in this as well, now this resulted in an issue, and this issue should be with that with query again, or some comment in the query. So I'm not going to bother about that a lot right now. Let's just keep moving forward on this. So we see that this is already working. Let me try one more query. So we see that give me the top 10 selling products. All right, let's see if it's able to get me the answer that I'm looking for. Once it comes back, all right, there you go. So we have the answer. Those are the top 10 products. Now let me see, give me the top 10 selling products in the US. Now it will need to further apply a condition on the SQL to give me the top 10 products within the United States. Let's see one more scenario here. Give me the number of products by distribution centers, please. Now we are asking for the number of products. They have a total of what, 10 or 11 10 distribution centers, and these are the products that these distribution centers hold. Now let me ask one more question, and this is an important scenario that we are going to be covering. I'm asking to break this data by men's and women's product, and look at the answer. I cannot break down the product count by gender, men's or women's, using the current table schema. The products table does not contain any information about the gender of the product. Now that's a good piece of information. See, look at this. The products information does not have, it has the distribution ID. It does not have any field that says gender, right? Let's look at what's going on in the product table. There's an important thing I want you to understand with this. If I go here, now look at this. Look at the department. The department has that information, men or women, but the agent has no way of imagining or coming to a conclusion that, hey, I can use the department field to determine the gender information about the product. There is no way. So what we can do to really make the agent aware that, hey, for gender information, when it comes to product related questions, you should be able to use the department field. And for that, we will make a small change in our prompt. And our prompt, let me go back to the prompt here, the prompt TLE. I'll provide one additional piece of information in this. Now, this information is going to be very important for the agent. Now let's see this information. Basically what I said was additional information. The department field in the products table holds the gender information, right? That's what we saw. In department field in the products table holds the gender information. Now so basically we included this additional info in our prompt. We just save this, run it again, and this time we should be able to get the answer that we are looking for. We just restarted our server. Let's test the scenario again. I'm asking my first base question, whether the agent is configured to pull the data from e-commerce as expected, we are going to get the right answer. Let me just run one basic query first. So that we know we are able to run, get the data. And there you go. Now I'll run the same scenario that we ran previously. Give me the total number of products by distribution center. This answer remains the same. Nothing changed here. And this time it gave us the distribution ID, and we can just, make it, get the distribution name as well. But that's okay. We want to test our scenario. We want to break the numbers by men and women. Remember that resulted in an issue before, but now the agent has the additional prompt, and hence it is able to give us the information broken out by men's and women's because of the additional prompt that we just configured. So this tells you how important the prompt engineering is. That just helps you make these agents really effective and powerful, and make them do what make them accomplish the results you want to accomplish. Here's the recap of what we did today. We started with the Quickstart, just built the basic chatbot based on what's available in the ADK Quickstart. We then went ahead and enhanced our code to build a chatbot with ChatGPT-like capabilities. We then went ahead with building 3 sub-agents that worked on these 3 different kinds of data sets publicly available on BigQuery: the Chicago crime dataset, the GCP release notes, and the Look e-commerce. Well, that brings us to the end of the series. Hope you liked the content, and if you did, then please hit like and subscribe the channel, Everything Cloud Platform. In this channel, I keep posting videos around platform engineering in general, and now a lot on AI. Some of the future sessions and videos are going to be around the other concepts that we did not touch upon in this series yet. We just looked at ADK. We are going to be getting deeper into MCP protocols, A2A protocols, and so on and so forth. But until then, good luck for everything ahead. All the best for everything ahead. Have a pleasant and successful life and career ahead. Thank you so much.